Hello everybody, here we are today talking about the Toronto Maple Leafs and then just seeing where they're at about halfway through the season, while also talking about whether or not they could possibly go out and win the Atlantic Division. But before we get started with it, please make sure to subscribe if you're new to me or hockey, whatever the case may be. That being said, let's get on into it. So we'll kick off this video by saying if you see this during the video, I'm fine, I just donated plasma today. But anyway, kind of circling back to Toronto, which is the focal point of this. This is a team that's been good for a while now. We've known that they've not had a bad year since the 2015-16 season when they had 69 points. Since then, they have had 7 trips to the postseason and have had 5 seasons with 100 points. Would have been 6 if not for a shortened year. And there's been a lot of positive, at least from the regular season. And I think that has been great for this organization because, especially in the early parts of all this, it really was a feel-good story. But again, too, there's a lot of negativity kind of surrounding this team, primarily due to the playoffs and their results, as in their 7 postseason trips, they've only advanced 1 time. And this stems, again, partially from this era, but also from the previous eras, as this organization has been in a bad spot for decades, really, in terms of that success that they are craving so much. And they felt like there was a lot of change, whether that was in recent years, the need for change in terms of all that, or the past, I don't know. I think a lot of it is recently here. So they went out and they got Craig Berube as their head coach, a former Stanley Cup winner, and that was neat. But I thought about this the other day. I have not got to talk about Craig or the team since I ended up doing their season previews, so I thought, why not talk about them again and kind of see where they're at the moment. And if we're looking at just the wide perspective, things look pretty good, as they sit 7th in the league for points as well as points percentage, and are a side that is actually competing for the division right now, which is big because it is now really just between them and the Florida Panthers at the moment. So a 2-horse race, which we kind of wondered if it would be at the start of the season, and that's how things are kind of shaping up for them. And they're actually ahead of the Florida Panthers right now, which is big because, again, you are ahead of the defending Stanley Cup champions, a side that's been really good over the past 3 years especially. And Toronto is not only holding the ground, but being able to have just a slight 1-point advantage over the Panthers. And I think this is big as well too, because Toronto has had a lot of reasons to say this is why maybe we will have a bad year, a down year, but they aren't. They are having what would be maybe not their best year, especially in this era, but a season that a lot of fans could say we are happier than what we thought we would be at the end of the year, which is great. Now, talking about all those things, of course, is fine, but what do the numbers tell us? Well, let's take a look. So taking a look at some of the individual players, I did want to highlight their success numbers-wise, and I think one of those players we can talk about is Mitch Marner. Marner is a player that has faced a lot of adversity in a long time, or for a long time I should say, but 2024, the playoffs onward, have been kind of hard for him. Again, the offseason was rough, the regular season was rough. A lot of questions facing this player with an uncertain future with the organization, despite the fact that he has, again, been one of their guys for a while. But right now things are looking really good for him as he leads the team in points and is 7th in the league at the time of recording this for points, 51 in 39 games played, I do believe, and is a player that has contributed to nearly half of Toronto's goals this season, 51 out of 120. He has contributed as well to 19 of their 24 goals on the man advantage and has been on ice for all 24 of those. So a player that has been able to chip in even when he might have the opportunity to check out. Even if his future in the 6 is not really safe, I will say this is a good year from Marner, and is certainly not doing too much to hurt his stock when it comes to free agency, where we know he's going to get paid one way or another, whether that is in Toronto or with another organization. This has been a good season for Marner. We'll see if it continues, as his team really could use more offense from him, as they are kind of stuck in a spot where they're not a top 10 side offensively. Now, as for another guy, you have Anthony Stolarz, their goalie. He had a good year last year with the Florida Panthers, a team that they made sure to not have him retained. Of course, too, they had Spencer Knight and Sergei Bobrovsky. But anyway, looking at Stolarz, he is having another good year. Now, he is set to miss some games with an injury thanks to knee surgery, but is 3rd in the league in terms of goals saved above average at the time of recording this. Mind you, he has missed some games and is a player that Toronto's probably not thrilled to see out of the lineup, but know that he has been able to have a good another season, and are hoping that with him not missing a ton of time, he'll be able to come back well before the playoffs would even start, knock off a little bit of that rust, and then also see what life would be like without him. But Anthony is one of those players that is sneakily in the Vezina conversation. Probably will get knocked out of it thanks to this injury, but is one of the guys out of a trio, or probably honestly like 5 goalies that are underneath Connor Hellebuyck right now, that are probably going to finish 2nd in terms of Vezina voting, which is unfortunate, but is made for a really fun year with guys like him and Vejmelka and like Philip Gustafsson all kind of competing for that spot. But I do think Connor's going to go out there and win it, but for Toronto, getting a Vezina caliber year out of their goalie is important too. Now, as for the team, I kind of alluded to this earlier. They may not be the greatest in terms of team stats. They are, close to top 10 in a lot of categories, and that's not as good as it's been in recent years. And the expected results are probably worse, more middle of the pack in a lot of ways. But one thing we can point to is actual results. So in terms of things like goals for percentage, they are a top 10 team. In terms of things like the PK percentage, they are a top 10 team. And when it comes down to expected results versus actual results, most fans actually care about the actual results versus the expected results, especially when you realize this team is facing possibly a lot of changes in the course of the offseason. They're focused on the now. This isn't something where you say, oh, well, we are a team that's hoping to break out, and these are not good signs for maybe a regression next year. This is a case of a team that is getting good numbers, and even if they aren't expected, it's not like the expected total versus the total or actual total is that much different, so it is a-okay. This team, again, is really focused on the W's because every team else is in the sport. That is what it's all based around, is getting wins, especially wins when it's important, aka the playoffs. Toronto is doing their part to get to the playoffs where it's already important for them now, but even more important in the future. So I'm not really bothered by this. I think there's a couple reasons why they could be more optimistic going towards the playoffs too, about why they might actually be more of a top 10 team, certain categories, especially offensively, to where, again, ideal for a playoff run. And so the biggest and primary and main reason that we're going to be talking about here about this team possibly being optimistic about being a better side, especially offensively, as the year goes along, is Auston Matthews is set to return from a 6-game absence. It is very worrying that Matthews has been missing a lot of games with kind of a lingering weird injury. But when we look at what's happening when he's out there on the ice, they are scoring goals, he is getting results, and is a player that could just absolutely make your lineup lethal. A player that's won the Rocket multiple times, a guy that is a 2-time 60-goal scorer over the past 3 seasons. When it is all said and done, you are worried about that injury a little bit, but as long as he's feeling good enough to play and he's, contributing offensively for this team as well as possibly having, a Selke caliber year, if he could, or a Selke caliber run in the playoffs, looking just good 2 ways, that would be really good for this organization. And there is, of course, the hope that maybe he is able to buck that injury trend as of late and actually get into a groove come playoff time and maybe not be as exhausted as he possibly would have been if he played all 82 games. Now, one thing that I will say as well, too, getting him back is great, knowing some of the lines you can work with here, but I will say as well, it's been really promising seeing the McMahon, Domi, and Robertson line. Got tongue-tied there as I went to talk about their third line, having good results and just helping out for this team. So if you are able to get more depth and just able to find more goals and have lines get a little bit more stabilized, really would be good for this side that's already, again, in a spot where they are top 10, near top 5 in the league for points, as well as possibly going out there and winning the division, spilling reasons to be optimistic in what has already been what I would consider a good year for Toronto. So this all being said, what exactly are my thoughts on Toronto? They are a team that still feels like they could be dangerous. I know we've talked about before how they really have underwhelmed, but this team, in a way, feels like it could be different. I'm not saying going to go out there and win the Stanley Cup, but with Craig Berube here, they've had a lot of opportunities to get snagged and say, oh, we're stuck. This is, not a go for us. This is a no-go. But with this season, they have not been able to get snagged when they probably should have got snagged, and that's great. Now, I do want Anthony Stolarz to come back and be healthy in order for them to actually be in a position to be all right for the playoffs. But this team does feel like they probably should go out there and make it to the postseason this year. As for possibly winning the division, I also feel like that is still on the table for them. They have the lead. They are a side that could be getting a little bit healthier as the year goes along. And they've been able to maybe get a little bit more confidence in for themselves. Maybe guys like Marner especially saying, hey, I've taken on a really big role for this team when we needed to. I feel good seeing more of those depth guys helping out again for the side pickup W's is really what you're hoping for here as they get closer and closer to, again, that scary time of the season, which is a postseason. Will they go out there and win the championship? We've already said probably not, but I do want to talk about this team mainly from the what-if point. What if they go out there and win a series and win this division? Does that change anything? Maybe. I don't think that it will in an entire way. You could see, again, guys like Tavares and Marner be gone, but this still would help kind of gloss over what's been a really bad run in this era to at least say things were better than what they had been in a long time. Mind you, before their trip to the 2016 season, they hadn't won a playoff series since 2004. They hadn't won a division title since 1999. If they're able to achieve, again, another series win and then a division title, they will be able to say that they've done it 2 times in this era. And I know we probably should expect more, or should have expected more from this team over the past 10 years now, getting close to 10 years. But you understand that there could be a lot of guys that could be going, a lot of money that could be, available to kind of move things around. But, a guy like Tavares, he's played a long time for this team, hometown team, guy that he wanted to play, or team that he wanted to play for before. And his time, I don't know. Again, with the money and his age and whatnot, but he's averaging close to a point per game. I'm just trying to have fans maybe take a little bit of a breath and then look from this onward and say, maybe it's not as good as we were hoping, but compared to previous years when we were just, at the point where we wanted to throw something at our TV, 2 division titles, 2 postseason victories is surely better than what we saw in a long time before that, as this organization has been able to move past the, we are complete playoff chokers to, we don't always win a postseason series, but we did very recently, and it's going to be all right going forward. Hopefully, I don't know. Again, it's a very tough situation for Toronto to be in, but this start of the year for them through the first 39 games has been good. So anyway, that's just kind of my choppy take on the Toronto Maple Leafs for their first half-ish of the season. I feel a little bit rough after the plasma donation, but I did want to get a video done for today and talk about a team in Toronto that I probably haven't got to talk about since like September, October, somewhere in that span. And they, again, being in a good spot, deserve to be talked about. So I think at this stage, I might just have 3 teams I have to talk about left that I haven't covered since season previews. Carolina, Philly, and then Chicago. Kind of covered Chicago a little bit earlier with the Luke Richardson firing, but I don't typically count those videos about a coach getting fired as talking about a team. So anyway, that's for the future. What are your thoughts on Toronto for the season? Let me know down below in the comments. Also, please make sure to like this video if you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you're new. Everybody stay safe. Have a great night. And you go love hockey, all right. Goodbye, Brigadiers and Brigadettes. This is your captain signing off. Have a great night.